Okay, please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
President Curto.
Here.
Vice President Daley.
Here.
Trustee Henderson.
Here.
Trustee Schwartz.
Here.
And Trustee Champlin is absent.
Trustee Champlin is rolling in.
Oh.
How are you?
Trustee Champlin.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. Happy New Year. Welcome back, too. I assume everybody's well rested and invigorated the new year. No answer?
Yes.
Good,
we are.
good. A little enthusiasm over there on the left. Two plugs, quick plugs. Next Tuesday night, January 13th from 7:30 to 9, the Haldane Garrison PTA Learning Differences Committee has a speaker. The topic's mindfulness-based stress reduction for parents and teachers. It's here in the music room, and just based on previous speakers that they've had, they're really good. So if anybody has any interest, contact the PTA, but my guess is that's going to be probably a great little event. They do a real good job with that, so I told them I'd give them a little plug. And then lastly, just before I walked out the door at home, I came across from the Haldane Fine Arts Committee, Gallery 66, which is on Main Street in the Village, is hosting a exhibit and fundraiser for the 2015 senior class at Haldane for their New Orleans trip. And the senior class, like last year's senior class, is going to New Orleans to work with Habitat for Humanity. And they're doing a art exhibit, artists and student artwork, silent auction, party, but it's a fundraiser for the class of 2015. Barbara Galazzo organized the whole thing. And I think it's going to be a great event. And there's also going to be an open exhibit from January 2nd through the 17th, and then the actual event is on the 17th. So keep an eye out on that. Haldane students are extremely talented in the arts, and if we could all go out and support them for that, that would be great. Thank you, Barbara Galazzo, who's an extremely talented person that always helps out the school. So 2 plugs for our community, and with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Power.
So welcome back, everybody. It's good to see everyone again. Happy New Year. We have actually, tonight's going to be a relatively short agenda simply because we had the holidays in between the last time we met and this. But we do have some important information that we would like to share. Recently, we received from the State Education Department the cohort rates for a number of different grades for graduation. And as it has been in the past, our graduation rates remain very high. The way that the State Education Department does share the rates, they share them in a 4-year graduation period, a 5-year graduation period, and a 6-year graduation period. And each of the cohorts, depending on when the cohort graduated, can give different values for each one. So the 2010 cohort, the graduation after 4 years is listed here, and it is at what is shown here in all students is 88%. If you look at it, the 4-year outcome, then that's in June. For the 4-year outcome for August, then shifts to 98%. And this happens when students may not graduate immediately for whatever reason, and they may graduate after taking Regents or not having one of the electives or finish by the time they graduate. We also have the 2008 cohort that's listed here. The 6-year outcome for the 2008 cohort is at 93%. The 2009 cohort, the 5-year outcome is at 99%. We also have the 6-year for 2008, which is up to 93. Again, the 4-year outcome in August for 2010 is 98, and the 2010 cohort, again, for the 4 years, 97%. So we remain in the high 90s for the cohorts for the last 3 years, so it's good news. And we hope that we continue, and I think that we're not going to ever be satisfied until we have the number of 100 there, but at this point we're very happy that remains the way it is. We have a strategic plan update. Within the last couple of days, I've presented the discovery outcomes to both the faculty at the high school and the elementary level. I'll be meeting with the middle school teachers in the near future at the faculty meetings. So we are finalizing the discovery process. The last time we met, we shared it with the Board of Education. Now we're sharing it with the faculty. Before the next meeting, we hope to have shared it with the student groups that we met with. So we're going to be coming back to speak with the students and the middle school teachers. Once that has been shared with all the constituent groups, it'll be placed on the blog and the website for people to refer to. And then we are about to launch the next phase of the discovery process, which is going into the strategic plan and answering the question of how we get to where we want to go. We do have a consultant that we are finalizing the contract with now. We had to do some negotiations as far as cost. And so that's in the final stages. We anticipate right now, we're looking at the potential of the first meeting being January the 28th. Once that is finalized, I will let you know, but that looks like it's going to be the entry meeting for the strategic plan. We are about to send letters to people that we would like to invite to be included. We have a number of participants that have asked to be included, and we will invite anybody else that has an interest. We are also putting an ad in the paper reminding people of the beginning of the process and anticipated dates throughout from January through May. So if anybody does have an interest in being part of our strategic plan, please let us know. We also, right before the holidays, had an interesting meeting that hasn't necessarily taken place in the community in recent years, but we had a Community That Cares Coalition meeting, and this meeting was a morning meeting that introduced to the community some of the data that was received last year when we asked our students questions about behaviors, middle school and high school behaviors, from anything from drug and alcohol use to tobacco use, issues with use of technology and the negative impacts there, and some of the other pertinent informations that are related to students at the middle school to the high school levels. This was given to all students in Putnam County. And so we were able to look at the Haldane results, and we were able to look at the students in Putnam County. All the other districts in Putnam County are also given this survey. So they are included in the overall scores, but school district to school district is not compared. And what we found is that we are about in the same place as the other children in Putnam County with their behaviors and the decision-making process that happens. And so we are beginning the conversation of what should we do as a community. And this is not a school issue, it's a community issue. It's one that asks questions not only about what happens in school, but what happens out in the community, what happens on the weekends, what happens at friends' homes, what happens when you get in the car, whether you're with somebody that has been consuming alcohol. Any of those types of questions are part of this survey. So we are looking at, I think I left that, is it the 21st?
21st.
The 21st. We are going to have another Coalition That Cares meeting in the afternoon at 4 o'clock on January the 21st. So if you would like to be part of the discussion and part of the solution to this, there will be information on the website. Please click in the 21st again of January, and the same results will be shared. But for the people that weren't able to get to a morning meeting, we're having a late afternoon meeting, so 4 o'clock on the 21st. And we invite you to be part of that.
Do we know where that is?
It's at Anne, do you remember what they were saying? It's St. Christopher's,
and
yes.
Garrison.
That's where it is. We also have a Board of Education workshop that will be on Tuesday, January 20th, and I would like to make a suggestion. At our Administrative Council meeting today, we were talking about, at this point, it looks like we're going to have 3 agenda items on the 20th. What we were planning on talking about at depth tonight is actually going to be pushed forward, because some of the information that we anticipated getting through the budget process has been pushed off for 2 weeks. And so we were going to start the discussion from the budget process tonight. We were going to talk about the rollover budget. We were going to talk about the state runs coming to us. The State of the State address was supposed to be occurring this week, which we hoped and we anticipated that next week we would get the Haldane State run. Because it has been postponed for 2 weeks and the next meeting is January 20th, we know we're already pushing beyond that, because the State of the State address is now going to occur on January 21st. So we don't anticipate that we're going to get the information about Haldane probably for another week after that. So we're looking at the late January 20s sometime that we're going to get that. So as the result, what we were going to be talking about today, we'll now talk about on the 20th. What we're going to talk about on the 20th is now going to be pushed to a later date. So we are going to have more information on the 20th to discuss. So we also are going to talk about the veterans exemption on the 20th, and we had the iPad initiative also listed for discussion on the 20th. And there has been a request that we consider pushing the iPad initiative to a later date. They think that there will be more to share if we move it into the spring. And that would give us more time to talk about the veterans exemption and where we are budgetarily at that point. So that has been a request, and if you're okay with that, we'll just move the iPad component of that to a later date. And we'll wait till you come back so you can be part of the process. So everyone comfortable with that?
So the 20th we'll do the veterans exemption and we'll do the budget, and iPads will roll sometime into the spring to be determined.
Right.
You guys okay? Okay.
Good, thank you.
Good. Couple questions.
Yep.
Strategic plan. So that first meeting is the 28th. Is that basically going to be for everybody who expressed an interest in any of the subcommittees?
Yes.
So it's like a one big kickoff meeting.
Well, it's going to be, what we're planning to do is, as we teach our kids in the workshop model, in the classroom, we're going to be actually running the strategic plan in a similar type situation. And what we'll be doing is starting out as a whole committee, and which will be all the members of the 5 subcommittees coming together to an umbrella committee. We'll be talking about the introduction and what the plans are throughout from January through May. Then we're going to be breaking off into the 5 subcategories. We're going to be meeting, we're going to have a charge for the people within the subcategories, and then we'll come back to a share. So what we're looking at are probably 2-hour meetings. The first half hour will be the whole group. The second hour will be meeting in subcommittees, and then the third part, which will be about a half an hour, we'll come back and we'll report out with the thoughts from the subcommittees. And that should happen on a monthly basis. And again, as far as the subcommittees go, we have 5 subcommittees. Teaching and learning is the first. The second is college, career, and citizenship readiness. We're also going to be looking at the facilities and the type of facilities we need to have in order to accommodate the type of learning that right now it seems to be on the forefront in the discovery process. We're going to be talking about the finances that are going to be required through the next 10 years to provide either the facilities and or the program that we're looking at. And then the 5th committee will be extracurricular activities, which will include any extracurricular activities, including sports, will be within that. And we will have administrative representatives as the chairs for the subcommittees, and we will be, as we said, doing kind of whole committee meetings, so we have time for smaller conversations and then sharing out for each meeting.
So that first meeting on the 28th, the expectation is people should block out 2 hours.
2 hours.
Okay.
And
Do we know what time it's going to start or not yet?
well, I think we're looking at a 6 to 8 time frame. And again, that will be finalized. When we talked to the consultant, we were talking about a 2 hour window for all the meetings, probably a 6 to 8 window at each meeting. And the final meeting will be a presentation to the Board of Education. So that will be slightly different because we're going to be meeting at a board meeting, which begins at 7. So that's the one time that it'd be different.
Okay.
So, Joe, we had talked about having a board member on each of those subcommittees, and we have another meeting before the event on the 28th, where we
Yep.
could finalize who's on each subcommittee. Did you want us to? I mean, I'd be quite happy on any one of them, so I don't have a preference, but.
All right, so why don't we ponder, and on the 20th, why don't we divvy them up and figure out where we all land? How's that sound?
6 o'clock going to work for you, Evan? Is that?
6 is good. I can do
It's
6.
okay. Okay.
I can do 6.
Okay, so on the 20th, we will,
And I think I know what subgroup I want to be on.
where do you want to go? And what-
College and
College and career. Okay.
So thank you, and I could say thank you for the administration also on your willingness to postpone the iPad initiative to a later time.
So can I just make a comment just about with the cohort data? And then actually this is something that kind of relates to what we just talked about. So just as far as with the cohort data, I spent a lot of time looking at cohort data. So, just I think some interesting things to maybe go in depth to point out, which I think is very positive. You want to look at the subgroups, because the NCLB, you want to look at the subgroups.
Yep.
And the last 2 years, the numbers are small. It's only a subgroup of 5, I think, in both 4 and 5. Economically disadvantaged, 100% graduation rate, 100% Regents or Advanced Regents diplomas within that group. So that's obviously very positive. And 88% graduation rate within students with IEPs, 63% getting Regents diplomas, 25% getting local diplomas. So I guess, Diana, the question is, do they talk about, like, what, is that a conversation, like, how they move? I mean, getting an advanced Regents diploma is very difficult. You got to pass. I think that the big hurdle is the 3 math Regents exams. How do you get that more, 25% students with IEPs getting local diplomas, moving that bar over to the Regents diploma? Is that a...
Well, it's 3 credits in math and 2 Regents are required for the advanced designation.
Right.
And it's also 3 credits in science and 2.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about moving from local diploma. So basically, I'm talking about the IEP students.
Right.
So it's 25% of the students who graduated got local diplomas.
Correct.
So, like what's done to try to get those students over the bar? Because they probably fall short on a couple of Regents exams by 4 or 5 points. So you're probably right there.
Yeah, and in some cases, if they're not able to get through the Regents exams, they have the safety net, and that's why they get the local diploma. But there are actually going to be some changes made at the state level, and it's instead of the requirement of the global history Regents, which has been traditionally the one that kids can't get through because of the extensive nature. It's a 2-year curriculum, and there's twice as much information. That's going to now become an option for kids. And they're realizing, and it's been decades that this has been going on, that this has been the tough nut for these kids to crack because of the sheer volume of information that they have to remember. Now that they're going to 4+1 Regents, they will have the option of not taking one of the social studies Regents, and they can opt for either the global history or the U.S. history as the one that they wouldn't take, and then they have other options available. Originally, it sounded like they were going to create new Regents exams, a CTE, which is a career tech kind of examination. There was going to be one in the arts and a couple of other options there. It looks like there are going to be Regents-approved examinations, so there will be more of the local control. So I think you're going to see a big shift in the graduation rate for those students that haven't been able to get through global history. But I think what you're asking is, do our IEPs reflect what is needed for these kids? The classroom, we have one of our special educators here today. I was in her classroom today, and we were looking at the goal setting that's taking part. And each student has folders. The kids are looking at the goals that they need to achieve. They're creating goals. And Andrea, if you want to mention some of the things you're doing to help these kids get through that hurdle.
Well, one of the things that we are with our sure.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, one of the things that, as Dr. Bowers was saying, in the I work in the high school in the special ed department, and one of the classes that we run is a resource class in which the students with IEPs come. All students with IEPs do get resource room, and their focus while they're in the resource room is working on their specific individual goals. One of the things that we are doing, and we track those goals, we have, as Dr. Bauer said, a binder where their goals are listed. They are aware of their goals. That's the first thing that we do. As teachers, we sit down with the students. We make sure that they are aware of what their goals are and if they agree with them. One thing that we're trying to do this year is we have been reading a book, and can't remember the name of it, sorry, but we're reading a book that explores how students can be even more involved in the IEP process, where they actually have a lot of input as to what they believe their goals should be. So they become less of a passive participant in the process and become more active. And yeah, we do hold our kids to high standards. Kids with IEPs, we don't tout the local diploma. They know that it's an option, but we certainly do try to get as many kids to get that Regents diploma as possible.
No, I'm not even questioning that. I think my question was, like, so a student who doesn't, let's say a student who with an IEP gets a 60 on the Regents.
Correct. Yes.
Are they retested?
Yeah, I mean they have
Like, is there a system in place, like, to sit back and say, okay, we've got, a senior who
Right.
is, has a 60 on the global Regents and passed the U.S. Regents, but he's not sitting in global, he has the credit, he has everything.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a plan in place to retest that student with?
Are you talking about taking the
And-
student
and
taking
I
the
could be
Regents
reading this
again?
with data wrong, and maybe this
But
is
when you
another-
say retesting, you mean having them retake the Regents.
Retake the test so he can get a 65,
In
so he
fact,
maybe
yeah,
can read
there
the
is a
Regents diploma.
senior that just came to mind who is in January taking the global Regents and taking the U.S. Regents, because that person did not pass either one of them, failed by a very small amount,
Right.
could get a
that's
local
enough for a
diploma,
local,
doesn't
but-
want one,
Right, so that's
wants
my
to get a
question.
Regents.
Right. Okay.
And then there are different accommodations that are made that allow them to succeed and get the local diploma, which we don't want.
Right.
But if they take it a couple of times and they pass parts of it and don't pass other parts, they only take components of the exam. They don't have to take the whole exam over. But yeah, I mean, what we're hoping to do is have advanced Regents designations for everybody, and that's the goal. But we provide for the student the ability to leave high school successfully in one way or the other, and then move on to college.
Sure.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Andrea.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. Jen, you were at the Community That Cares meeting. Do you want to share any observations while you were there?
I was there. Yeah, I mean, a few things stood out to me as really encouraging because there were parents there of young kids, which I was really encouraged by. I think, when we think about drug use or alcohol use, we're thinking about teenagers, and that's who took the survey. But I was really encouraged that there were parents of younger kids there, like kindergartners, and the presenter even talked about things that young parents can start doing to educate their kids on proper, behaviors around alcohol and smoking and things like that. So I was really encouraged by that. I was also really encouraged by the turnout. There was a lot of people there, and it wasn't just Haldane parents, which I also really liked. There were, a member of the village board was there, clergy members were there, and I really felt like that started to demonstrate that this is a community-wide conversation. So I thought that was really encouraging. And the other thing to say is that, so I was at the presentation of this material, I guess whenever it was, a month or so previous to that meeting, as well as we've all received that information. So I feel like I've sat with this survey a fair amount, and I feel like there's still so much to learn from it. So even at this, I would say it was my third kind of diving into it in this presentation, and I felt like I still learned a lot more from it. So I think the survey is really rich in terms of what it tells us and the questions that it gets us to ask. So I continue to be impressed by the survey, and I continue to be impressed by the presenters, I guess they're just called the Community That Cares Coalition group. So I thought it was really positive.
Good.
Yeah.
And that's the model that works, is when it's a broad-based group of people get together and it's not just the school initiative. The school initiatives don't typically work. So the fact that they're getting that participation that early is good. That's a good thing. So good. Just a procedural question for January 20th. Is the plan that you're going to do a presentation on the veterans exemption as to what it is, why it came about, and then the numbers associated with? Yes. And then after we've piped in, I guess, and had comments, then there'll probably be a mechanism for, let's say, a public hearing at a meeting thereafter?
That's certainly up to you. You can choose to do that, or you can choose to vote, or you can choose to put it off for an extended period, however you'd like to do it.
Should we decide on that, though? Because if we have to vote by March 1st, is that correct? So that it can go into effect for this coming school year, then it sounds a little bit like we need to decide that if, like, the 20th is the presentation, and the following meeting needs to be the public hearing, and then the following meeting needs to be the vote, and then we're kind of up to March 1st.
Yeah, I mean, we could put part of the public hearing at the business meeting in early February, if that's what you choose to do.
Yeah, I mean, what I was kind of thinking is presentation on the 20th, which gives us all the meat and potatoes and all the data. Public hearing on the 6th, and basically we may or may not have something on the 21st. Maybe we do it on the 6th, depending on where the conversations lead to. Because I read 7 different districts the way they've done it, just to give a flavor of how people are handling the issue. And it seems that the consensus, at least from what I've read, is that they're doing it in 2 meetings after the presentation. So sometimes the public hearing and the resolution is the same night. Sometimes it's pushed to a third. I know Garrison went to 3 meetings: presentation, public hearing, and then a resolution. So they went to 3. Some did it in 2.
Is it making it a referendum also a decision that we have to make?
I haven't found one. I don't know. Maybe you can. I haven't found anybody who's gone that route.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's an option.
Oh,
It is an
It's an
option.
option, yes.
Oh, okay.
But nobody that we know of has exercised
that,
that option, yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be a very difficult thing to put people within the community against each other in that type of a situation. And I think that that's why people are choosing not to go to a public referendum. And you don't want it to become a divisive issue for the community itself.
So that's the plan then. Presentation, and then at the very least, we'll go into a second meeting. So be prepared on the 20th to have questions, comments, and maybe a frame of thought for everybody, so we can provide some direction. And Ann, I'm sure we'll be well geared up for numbers and stuff like that.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, I have a feeling that
Great.
having the 3rd meeting might be a good option for us. So if the schedule allows for that, then I think that would be a good
Well,
thing.
you have the
Yep.
two February meetings.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I think that's kind of how it, in a way, that it should work. If we're accepting public comment, then it's not like you want to have your vote ready. It's like you want to hear what people have to say and then digest that information and think about it and then be able to vote if time allows. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So come on the 20th ready to think. As always, though. Anything else for Dr. Bowers? Did you want to touch base a little bit on that SED visit tomorrow?
Oh, yes, I do. And we just found out, it was just this week, that the State Education Department shared that they were coming for a visitation tomorrow. And for the grant that we received through the State Education Department, and we are going to have, what the grant is a $50,000 stipend that's given to schools that mentor other schools. And so we have two schools that have, one is in Yonkers and one is in Buffalo. So we have our administrators that are going to be traveling to both schools, and we have the administrators from the school in Buffalo and the school in Yonkers that will be coming to observe what we do at Haldane. And so the dissemination grant is, we've already started receiving some of the funds for it. Once we do the visitations and the mentoring, will be additional funds will be released. And at this point, we have spent the funds that have come in to buy LLI, level literacy intervention kits, for the students in the K-8 building, and it will extend our literacy program. So it's a win-win for everybody. We did talk a little bit about it today. The demographics of the schools are dramatically different. One of the schools, the school in Buffalo, has 95% free and reduced lunch, so it's really not talking about replicating necessarily all the programs that we have here, but what they will be looking at is the flexible scheduling that allows for extended time for certain bits of information for the kids that are struggling in certain areas to have additional time with their teachers. And so I think that will be the primary focus.
Great. Good.
Well, I must say, I mean, I once went to a school in Waco, Texas, and it was probably one of the best experiences I had. A totally different demographic, but obviously Texas, but it was just so rich. I still think about what I got out of that. So those two schools are very lucky, I think, to be coming here, and I think they'll get a lot out of it.
Great. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dr. Bowers from you guys? No? Okay. Thank you. Any communication from the public on anything that we've spoken about? No? Okay. Consent agenda minutes? Motion? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. And just by the way, if you go on Board Docs and you go to the previous meeting, you can click on it and you can actually watch the YouTube video of our previous meeting or any other meeting. So thank you to the video team and thank you to Julia Familaro. That's actually a great feature. It helps us remember what we said as well. Consent agenda financial. Motion?
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, there were a couple of items that we just got today at noon. I did have a chance to look at them, but just want to make sure that everybody was okay with those items.
Say it again? I'm sorry.
There were two. We got the. Which did we get? That we got the two of the items we were just posted today, so we didn't have a chance to look at them before this afternoon.
Oh,
Yeah, because of the holiday.
yeah. You want to pull up.
I did read them and reviewed them, and they were completely uneventful, if that's helpful.
Yeah, one thing we may want to take a look at we have a couple of clubs carrying some rather large balances.
Yes.
We don't need to have a discussion about that now, but I think it might be helpful for us to understand if there are any liabilities associated with clubs having such large balances. And I think we should inquire as to the intent of those clubs, what they plan to use those funds for. We don't want people just hoarding cash for no good reason.
Okay. Sounds good. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Consent agenda personnel. Motion?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Unfinished business, nothing? Communication from the public on anything? No? Okay.
There is one other thing related to the financial items. And we have an RFP in process right now for the external auditor.
Yes.
Do you remember what the deadline is for submission of proposals for that? It must be coming up soon.
They had until the 19th of December to give an intent. There were about 5 firms that gave the intent. And I don't have in front of me the timeline, but it's the middle of this month that the proposals are due.
Good.
And I'll be forwarding that on to the audit committee.
Great. Well, that's good. 5 responses. That sounds good.
That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
Well, they said they intended
Initial
to send
responses,
it.
yeah.
Initial responses.
And will the audit committee interview whoever submitted, or will they screen it first and then interview?
Most likely, the audit committee will do some pre-screening, and then based on that discussion, we'll decide where to go as far as interviews.
Good. Okay.
Good.
Keep us posted on that. Communication from the public. I don't think there was any. New business. J1.
Thank you. This is the CSE CPSE recommendations. And the recommendation is that the Board of Education approves the recommendations by the Committee on Special Education and Preschool Education as indicated.
Motion?
Motion?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
J2.
Okay.
Policy review.
And if I could just add a
Sure.
little bit of information. This is actually the second read of part of the policy, but the first read for additional information that was put in. We had Erie Boces that sent us additional information through their labor relations that wasn't within our policy. So we modified the policy for the first time at the last meeting, and then we added additional information. So if you have questions, it could be asked, and if you would like to hold off before you approve the entire thing with the new information, that's understood as well.
Okay. So just to recap, this was the policy of non-resident students, and it basically, the adjustment from what we discussed at the last time was adding a stipulation for special situations that the board could then determine whether or not it's worth revisiting or not. And that basically was all it was, to get you to the second step, which is conditions of the special conditions. And then the Erie Boces submitted some other things which, I read also pertain to foreign students, exchange students, and some things like that. Which I thought was good. And Erie Boces, just to clarify for us, Dr. Powers, when we get an Erie Boces policy, they're through a legal department, right?
So the Labor
Okay.
Relations Department, which, yes, has lawyers that help to write the policies.
Okay.
Has our lawyer, has Mike looked at this?
It has been sent to him, and this is pretty much boilerplate. Most of it is pretty much boilerplate, but one of the things that we're going to have to figure out before we get into the full policy review is how much of an impact that Mike will have, because what they'll send to us comes from labor relations, so it's written by lawyers. And I don't know if it will necessarily be cost effective, because we're going to be literally looking at hundreds of policies, to have Mike review them after the Labor Relations has sent them to us, we've modified them, and if we do then send to our council, it may become not necessarily cost effective. So it just, as we move into that, we're going to have to think about it. And some that we feel, if there's any questions about, how we feel or about the legalities of it. Then we may wish to send it to our council, but realizing that the policies that were written by the Relations Department.
And part of the pre-screening of using Erie BOCES is that you guys are confident in their quality of their team, legal department, and everything. So there's that precursor of scrutiny first. Okay.
And there are other options before we go into it, if you choose to look at other options. There are other labor relations departments and other BOCES, and there's also New York State school boards. So there are different options before we go into a full-fledged policy review that we might want to consider.
So where
It
did,
is something, a service that we subscribe to. We already
Yes.
pay money to have the experts at Erie BOCES provide us with
Correct.
policies that have been screened for. So the more we can adopt their wording, their language verbatim, the better. When we diverge from that path, that's when we have to involve our own attorney, and that's when the cost of the district goes up.
Right.
So-
And what we've been doing is screening the policy that Erie BOCES sends, and we have policies that we've already adopted, and we feel comfortable with the language. And if it's already in our policy, we don't add it, and if it's not in our policy, then we add verbatim from Erie BOCES. So it's a melding of the two.
I'm sorry, so is Erie BOCES the only place that we have, that we're already prepaying for legal services? Are we also prepaying for it at, like, NISBA and?
No, it's an additional cost. We have a NISBA membership, but if you want the policy program, you have to pay
That's an
additional.
additional
Yep.
cost, okay.
yep,
Frequently, those NISBA policies are available on the internet.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's good for comparison sometimes to take a look and see if there is a NISBA policy.
Yep.
Oftentimes they're virtually identical, if not identical.
so J2, back to J2. Do you guys have any questions? Do you want to, because of the new information, do you want to push it to the next meeting? How do you guys want to handle it?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I didn't realize until earlier today that there was all this new information in this policy. I took a quick look at it and it looks good, but I think given the scope of the change, I think it would be
You want to
good to
hold
push
off
this
till
off.
next time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so why doesn't everybody re-review and submit questions to Dr. Bowers before the next one so she can be ready and raring to go? I read it, and it's pretty standard stuff. It's a little more lengthy than the previous version, but why don't you guys all read it and pipe in? Okay. J3.
This is the approval of an agreement with Think Ahead Chess. And the recommended action is that the Board of Education approves the agreement dated December 19th, 2014 with Think Ahead Chess of 80 Carrollwood Drive in Terrytown, New York, 10591 for the provision of a 10-week chess program for the Haldane Elementary School students in grades 3, 4, and 5. Both Haldane School Foundation and the Haldane PTA have agreed to subsidize the $8,150 fee for this 10-week program. In addition, the board authorizes the superintendent to sign this agreement on behalf of the board.
Motion?
Motion.
I'll second. Discussion, comments? I think this is pretty cool. I think it's great. Thank the PTA, thank the school foundation for making it happen, and I hope it becomes something more prevalent, like a middle school chess club or a high school chess club and stuff like that. I think it's great. So,
That's something that they've been working on for a long time, as I understand it. Brent's really been,
He's been looking to do it, and
Yeah.
so it all came together this year.
great.
So as far as the cost goes, we've already seen a commitment from the school foundation for $46.50, I believe.
And 3,600 will be from the PTA.
So that's a firm commitment from the PTA to
We are-
provide the
we
rest
have
of those
been
funds. 'Cause
told
that's
yes.
it's a large sum of money.
Oh, it sure is, and we have been told
especially-
that that's the case, so.
Okay.
And if it's not, we'll modify the contract. So.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think we have the option of.
Yeah,
doing
no,
that. Once the
it's
contract is signed,
been a
it's
commitment.
so-
They're more than willing to do that, yes,
Okay,
And thank both of them.
yeah.
That's
yes.
a great commitment.
yeah.
And it's an after-school fee program.
Well, it's during this, most of
After
it.
the, right.
Oh,
the
right, and then
option.
they have the option after school,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
on Mondays.
right.
There'll be an extra program.
Okay.
So part of the Part of it takes place during regularly scheduled class time.
Yes.
Part of it also takes place during lunch.
Well, that's if they want, that's optional. In addition to, they will have it scheduled during the regular day, and they have an option of taking additional lessons during recess, not necessarily lunch. They'll eat, and then they can go to recess and play chess at that time.
Okay. And the other component is after school, so that's run.
Well, that's
like-
actually, the parents will pay for that.
Yeah.
And so it's like the PTA courses that are
After-school
given,
activities,
yes, yeah.
Okay.
But it's quite reasonable, $90 for 9 weeks.
Yeah, for an after-school
For
program?
a whole hour.
That's
Pretty,
pretty cheap.
yeah.
So, okay, you guys good?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None? Great, thank you again, PTA School Foundation. I will drop them a little card in the mail. J4,
This is an approval of a contract with Hudson Valley Behavioral Solutions as per student IEP. The recommended action is that the Board of Education approves the consultant agreement with Hudson Valley Behavioral Solutions, 3 Rothel Drive, Suite 1A, Hopewell Junction, New York 12533, for the period of January 1st, 2015 through June 25th, 2015, as per student IEP, and authorizes the superintendent to sign this agreement on behalf of the district.
motion,
Second.
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? J5, school budget calendar. We started talking about this at the last meeting. We made a couple of changes, or Ann made a couple of changes.
And then we made a couple more changes
And we made a couple more changes.
because of the news that came from Albany. And so, as I said, that part of the information that we were going to be discussing tonight will now be postponed and will be discussed at the last meeting. But I do want to give you some good news. And Ann, one more time. Okay. Ann was able to do some number crunching and to kind of give you a beginning look at the budget process. Ann has been calculating and looking at all the numbers that we presently know, and she has looked at a rollover budget if we were to do exactly what we're doing this year, next year. There was, it's great news. We're very happy because of TRS and ERS and some of the other things that are coming into the equation. It looks like our rollover budget will be less than 2%. So it's good news. And if the 12-13 school year, the rollover budget was 3.71. The 12-13-14 school year, the rollover budget was 4.93. 14-15, it was 2.85, and it looks like for 15-16, it will be somewhere between 1.74 and 1.90%. So it looks like we're going to be going into the budget year, and that's not including some of the changes that are going to occur, like retirements and some of the other things that we're looking at. But it looks like we're keeping our fingers crossed that this might be a much easier budget year for us. Yep, we'll take it.
So we're going to get into the rollover budget next meeting.
Yes,
More
and
in
the
detail.
particulars of it. But
Okay.
this is just first blush, and we thought when we saw the numbers, we should kind of share it. And so it's good news.
And just to clarify for everybody, the rollover budget is based on a spending plan, not a tax rate, correct? Right, because I know people get that mixed up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we will not have that information for a while yet, what the tax
Right.
levy limit and the increase will be.
Okay, so we have our calendar, which obviously we can adjust, but we do need to adopt at some point, which we will adopt at the next meeting. Just a couple of questions. What is the rough date that we will get our tax levy estimate? When we'll know what that tax cap is?
The tax levy increase, the allowable tax
Yeah.
levy increase? Okay.
Roughly.
Well, that's,
Is that the 3rd? February 3rd?
well, that's what we're really going to talk about. That's after the final state budget. We can talk about it February 3rd, after the governor's proposal comes out. We'll know our state aid, and the rest is going to be coming from taxes. So we'll have a rough idea.
Okay, so
and
February
talk
3rd, we'll have
about
that
in
rough
February.
idea.
And
We'll
it
talk
needs
about
to
the
be
limit.
submitted on March 1st. So we have to have a finalized version of the allowable tax levy increase to be submitted to the state by March 1st, so it'll be sometime in the month of February. We'll have hard numbers.
Okay.
Yeah, our tax levy limit is the maximum that our tax levy can be, but, after our final figures and, whatever the board decides as far as use of fund balance, et cetera, then we'll know what the real tax levy is in April.
Right. Okay, so February 3rd is a big date. And the state aid runs, when do we get those?
We don't know. It's after the State of the State address. It usually comes in about a week after the State of the State.
Okay. And then what's the legal date that we have to adopt the budget?
April 21st.
is
So that's the legal date.
last.
Last legal
Last.
date.
But we added that April 14th meeting because of the last meeting that was requested, so that we're not going to the very last date. If we need to reschedule, at least there is something to reschedule to.
Okay. So, all right, so the 21st. Evan, you're away on the 7th of April, if I have that correct?
Yes.
Jen, you're away on the 14th and the 21st, if I have that correct. Okay. Got it. Okay. The only other question I have is we had talked about this educational rationale session, which was going to be new. On this draft, we've got February 3rd and February 24th. Is there any concern that the gap between the two is 21 days?
Well, we have the vacation.
Right. Do we lose any continuity by having that gap or no?
What we decided to do is one day will be operation and maintenance, and one day will be the instructional piece. So there won't be any connection continuity-wise necessarily between the two. It's the two separate areas that we're looking at.
Okay.
So we purposely put all the instructional on one day and all the operation and maintenance on another day.
Got it. And then we're scheduled to talk about, as a workshop topic, reserve funds, fund balance, and shared services on February 24th. That's okay to mix that with the instructional? Seems to make sense.
It's all part of the budget, yeah.
Okay.
And that operations and maintenance is support segments of the budget. That's not just, the cleaners and that. We can talk about transportation. We'll talk
Food
about debt
service.
service. We'll talk about everything that's not instructional.
Okay. You guys have any thoughts initially? I mean, we don't have to do anything till next meeting, but
It would have been nice, I think, to have those two meetings back to back with not such a large gap, but given the logistics, I think it's fine, actually.
okay.
I mean, which week is the vacation week that we're dodging?
Vacation week is the 14th through the 18th
Okay.
of February. 14th is Saturday. Valentine's Day.
So we could potentially do it on the 10th.
That's interesting, like to push the 24th meeting to the 10th and then not have one the 24th unless needed. So to do the two meetings back to back.
I mean, it's kind of a weak reason, I think, to make a readjustment.
I'd say keep it.
Keep it the way it
I would
is.
say keep it, but that's just me. So why don't we ponder that, and we've got till the next meeting to figure it out.
Well, because you also said that the February meetings we're going to need for the veterans exemption.
Right, the public hearing basically is not from everything that I've read, they don't get an enormous amount of participation. The presentation one generally does, but not necessarily the public hearing part.
We were looking at the 24th to make the final decision.
Right.
That was going to be the meeting to make the final decision.
Right,
That's right.
which potentially is just a resolution.
And we're looking at the 3rd for the public hearing.
Right.
for
Correct.
that.
Yes, we still have a week to.
Right. So why don't we ponder this, unless you guys have any other theories or thoughts. I'm fine with it. I mean, what I'd love to see happen, or what I'm going to shoot for, is that we adopt a budget 5-0, so we're all on board with the same budget. And if it means that we have to Skype in Miss Daly, be happy to make sure that that happens.
I thought she can't vote if she Skypes in.
I think you can, can't you?
You can vote if you Skype, you can't vote if you're on just phone, if it's audio.
Oh,
But you have to, I think, be in a public place.
that's new. Okay.
That's new.
Yes, that,
be in a
it's
public place.
You have
last
to be in a
year,
public place.
and you
Okay.
actually have to post it. So
Okay.
wherever Jen is, she's going to have to post.
I'll be working, but I'll be working near a beach, so I'll try to be on the beach while doing that. Just to make you guys feel good.
We would probably not want to make that part of the marketing plan. But ideally, let's adopt
We can
something.
FaceTime if that's easier.
Yeah.
As long as you can see the person and it's in a public place, it's allowable now.
So let's shoot for 5-0. We're all on board. I've never had one that wasn't in my tenure, and I want to retire with a 5-0. So how's that sound? Good?
Yeah.
Okay. So we will adopt a budget calendar at the next meeting. Thank you. J6. Rate of pay for substitutes. We talked about this at the last meeting, and there were some questions, and we wanted to basically defer it so people had time to ponder.
And you've received some of the information that was shared about the subs and the difficulties we've been having, first of all, getting subs, and then once they've committed, having them actually show up because other districts are calling them and they're choosing to go to the higher paid districts. And so we had Julia that shared some information. We also talked a little bit about when we can't get subs, and we use coverage in place of hiring a substitute teacher, the differential in costs. And so even though we're looking at modifying the costs that we're paying a sub, it's cost effective if the other option is to just get teacher coverage.
Okay. So basically, just to summarize, our current rates are $79 for non-certified and $88 for a certified teacher substitute. If I understand it correctly, we have basically three options. Option one is to do nothing, keep it as is, and keep it at 79 and 88. Option two was a hybrid idea that Ann had proposed, which was to raise it to 85 and 95. That would, for the most part, assure us that we would stay within our budget parameter. We would look to do this effective February 1st through June 30th. Option three was a full increase to bring it up to what would be deemed market or some market, and that would be 90 and 100, and there was an expectation that we might exceed the budgeted amount given expectations. Did I have it right?
Yes.
Okay.
And as Dr. Bowers pointed out, that there's another line item that's for coverages. That's, we could exceed that if we just have to use those.
I'm sorry, what was that one?
The coverages, if we have to have a teacher cover a class, if we don't have a sub available, that's another part of the budget that it's like, it's all moving.
Correct.
know?
The budget's always moving.
Budget's always moving.
Okay, so those are the three options. You guys have had some time to ponder this. I'm sure this is what you've done over the break. But we have those three options. Obviously, there's more, but to make this not overly complex, those are the three options.
Well, do we have a specific flat out, these are a recommendation, like a preference from?
Well, I think that if it would make people more comfortable, we could do a two-tiered approach where we increase it to the first tier now, and then in July we increase it to the second tier. And that will allow us to get to market value, but it will also stay within the confines of the dollar values that are in this year's budget. But when you're starting to look at the fact that if we don't increase and we don't get subs, then we're using coverage of teachers, which is more expensive to begin with. I think there's so many different components. I would recommend that we at least go to the next tier now. And if you're not comfortable going to the market value, look at a two-tier approach into this.
Okay.
and recommend July 1st we go to the full market value.
And we could always change our minds, right? So if we agree to the tiered approach for February 1st and then realized by April 1st we had no subs or something, if it was continuing to be a problem, we could look at it and deal with it
Yes.
then.
That's
I
an
mean, it's
option
not
too.
like a lifelong sentence.
Right.
So those are the three options. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts. I personally like option 2, which is the tiered approach. Let's start tackling the problem and then budget the full increase in next year's budget. At least we know we won't exceed the budget in case we run into some other issues from now until the end of the year, which seems to be the case lately. And at least we're competitive. And for the most part, I think the couple of bucks that would be different, I'd rather work here than work in some other places for $4 or $5, whatever the number was. But that's just me.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say. Option 2.
Well, I expressed some reservations last time about doing this outside of the standard budget cycle.
Yep.
However, given the information that we've been provided about the impact that this is having on the current school situation, I'm ready to be a bit more flexible. And if we think that the two-tier approach will have the net result that we're looking for, where we can actually get the substitutes that might otherwise go elsewhere, then that does seem to be a good option. And the expectation is that we would still be within the budget for that line for this year. So that would be acceptable. I wouldn't be in favor of going the full amount right now, since that most likely would put us over budget. But I could see us going halfway. But one thing I wonder, like you were saying, Joe, you'd rather teach at Haldane. There might be other non-monetary things that we can do for our substitutes to make them feel like Haldane is their place of choice. I don't know what kind of things we might do. Invite them to participate in our after-school staff development, or some other kind of non-monetary compensation that we can provide to them to show that we really value them and we see them as important members of our community. And it's not just about giving them a paycheck in return for a day's work.
And it's,
Are they invited
sorry.
to things like staff breakfasts and
yeah,
stuff like that?
well, we have, I don't know if we had subs at our breakfast on Thanksgiving. I mean, we certainly would, but I think what maybe you're talking about, I'm making assumptions here, but to invite them to our institutes. We have our second PBL institute starting this Thursday and Friday, and that would be something we could do, provided it wasn't going to bump out a full-time teacher. If we had extra slots, we could certainly offer that as part of the staff development, where they get trained in something without having to pay for it. And that may be something that we can consider. I mean, right now, having done 2 full-time institutes this year, 2 3-day institutes for our teachers, we're filled. We're at our level in both, and so it wouldn't work, but maybe in the future there's something that we can do.
Okay. Maybe you guys at the administrative council meeting can kind of just toss it around and see if there's...
It's a good idea, though. You're right. I mean, we can include them in and make them feel part of the process, and maybe that would be something that would tip the tip the point. So.
Okay. So your option 2. Staley?
Option 2.
Option 2.
2 it is.
2 it is?
All right.
Okay, so the consensus is to use Ann's hybrid option 2. Do you want to recite a resolution that we can approve?
The recommendation would be that the Board of Education approves an increase in the rate of pay for per diem substitute teachers and per diem substitute school nurses to $85 per day for certified substitutes and $95 per day for $95 per day for certified substitutes and $85 per day for non-certified substitutes effective February 1st, 2015.
Sounds good. Do I have a motion?
Motion?
Second?
Second? Discussion on the resolution? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Julia.
So is it fair to say for the budget that Ann should be using the full rate for the budget for next year? Like when you calculate, yeah.
Is that the direction we'll go to the full
Right.
market value?
I mean, yeah.
try.
We still have to do the resolution, right, obviously. but-
Yep.
See where we stand.
Yep. Okay. Anything else, new business from anybody? Jen, do you want to comment on maybe your?
So I'm on baby watch, everybody. I'm here if I'm not here.
No, sorry.
I'm on the baby countdown. I'll be here until I'm not here, and but the public should rest assured that board business will continue on with or without me here. That voting can happen via Skype. That if there is some sort of split vote, I can be available to break the tie. So everything will continue on as normal, and then I will be back when I'm back. So there are some kind of variables to all of that, as you all know. But I'll be staying as abreast of everything as usual, I expect, at least.
Okay, good. I'll make a concerted effort not to bother you too much,
You can bother me.
but I will bother you at some point.
Yep, you're welcome to bother me.
Okay.
If I'm not here at the board table, it's probably because I'm either with a baby or about to have a baby.
Good. Good. Well, good luck.
Yes.
Yeah,
Good luck.
definitely.
Congratulations.
I did review the school law book, and there was no provision for delivering a baby at a board meeting, so fortunately,
We have parents and moms here that could assist in the process if needed.
looks like we'll get through this meeting without having to raise that issue, which is a good thing.
Budget news wasn't stimulating.
Yeah, I know. It might have sent me over the edge.
There you go.
Postponed that.
Good. Anything else new from anybody? Since Jen will be out for, a little bit, if you guys are not going to make a meeting, just let me know. So because we need 3 to have a quorum. So if I'm driving and my car breaks down and I know that we're going to be short, and I know that I got to fix the car quicker than I would have fixed it if we had 3. So just keep me posted. All right? Okay.
I would just like to invite any of the members of the board, if you have any interest in stopping in and seeing what we're doing in our PBL institutes. We have one this Thursday and Friday, and which is the first 2 days of the 3 institutes. And I can tell you that having watched what happened at the last institute, it's really amazing, some of the projects that have come out of that first institute. And we have students that are creating an app for the community to help with natural disasters. We have students that found a frog at Home Depot, and it was brought to the school, and Mark Wick and his students determined that it came from Cuba, and it was a tree frog that is overwhelming the tree frog population. And they have an ethical issue right now because all these tree frogs that exist when you find them in either Florida or Cuba, you're told to kill them immediately, euthanize them, because they are an invasive species. So we're having conversations and this is a real life experience that the students are grappling with right now. And so there is going to be a Socratic seminar talking about the pros and cons and what to do and what would happen if you don't follow through, and what could happen to other frog populations. And so what started out as a little, what kind of frog is this, that ended up at Home Depot, is now become this full-fledged kind of PBL study, and the kids are loving every minute of it. And so there's a little bit of emotion and some excitement and all the other things that go along with it, but that's what you want in education. And so some of the things that are happening are just extraordinary. So I congratulate the teachers.
Great. That's the
My
stuff.
understanding is that we don't just put the curriculum on hold while we go become experts in Cuban frogs, but that then is woven across all of the disciplines that the kids are studying, and there's
Right.
data analysis, and they're reading texts that they wouldn't have otherwise have encountered.
Absolutely. And there's more flexibility in a middle school level. And so this is the 6th grade curriculum, so that allows the teacher to infuse the material that would be taught in a different way into kind of this PBL experience. And that's one of the things we're going to be grappling with in the future is when you have a Regents curriculum that has a required test at the end, how do you then infuse PBL into that? But Stacia Snow, our staff developer, works at Tech Valley High, and the kids at Tech Valley High also take Regents exams. So this is something that's been tried and true, and this is something that she's learned how to do, and her colleagues have learned how to do, and so this is what she's going to be sharing with us at the high school level. But the flexibility is much greater when you're not looking at a state exam at the end. And so
But the point is, it's a more meaningful
Absolutely.
learning experience because it's grounded in real world
Right.
rather than just turning the page and learning facts because
Right.
you know they're going to be in the test.
And the learning is actually being driven by the students. And they're the ones collecting the information and coming in and sharing it and it's being, certainly there's a coach in the role of a teacher that's helping them get to the right places, but a lot of the work is being done by the students. So it's.
And it says a lot actually about the administration and about you, Dr. Bowers, that the staff, the teachers feel the confidence and flexibility to be able to go there. Right, that they don't think their principal is going to walk down the hallway and peer into their classroom and shut it down because it's not exactly what they had in their lesson plan originally. Right. But that it's the whole organism is saying, let's open it up and be flexible to real learning in real time, and that's it's like it's top down. Leadership.
And likewise with the board, because I believe all of you have been invited to the Socratic Seminar if you have an interest in seeing how that works. So, please feel free to join us for any of the study, the 2 days, this Thursday and Friday, or for the Socratic Seminar.
What time's the frog?
I'll have to get that back to,
I want to go to that.
information. But
I would guarantee you that the frog students, when they sit at the dining room table with their parents, they are having a great conversation.
And that was one of the things
And
that
that's what's supposed to happen.
we suggested, because as they first learned about the way that these frogs are being dealt with, it became slightly emotional. And so the teacher suggested that the parents get involved in the conversation and that be part of the study, because these are ethical issues that we have to deal with and grapple with on a regular basis, and that's what the learning is and what the reality is. So yes, so I think that it's become a kind of a community learn as opposed to just in-class learn.
Good. Well, good. Okay. Anything else from you guys? Any communication from the public?
Big book club discussion
Oh,
on the 20th.
yeah, next Tuesday, or Tuesday the 20th,
Yes.
6:30, we continue our book read. Evan will be moderating. Is there anything we need to know ahead of time?
Just come prepared.
Okay.
It's gonna be a quiz when you show up.
Lovely.
Uh-oh.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the public on anything? Anything?
What book are you reading?
Leadership on the Line by?
It's by Heifetz and Linsky, and it's a book on how to make successful change in a setting, and in this case, a school setting. So everybody's enjoying the process as opposed to feeling uncomfortable about it.
And we read 6:30 to 7 before our workshop meetings. So it's the third Tuesday of the month. And we've had maybe 4 or 5 of them so far.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually been pretty good.
Yep.
I mean, the homework's a little tough, but it's good. Any questions from the public? Anything else from anybody else? Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. Stay warm.